All right, about to fire the Traeger up, do some pork spare ribs. I'm gonna trim these up into St. Louis ribs, and that's all in the prep when you do St. Louis ribs. We're gonna square these off, pull the membrane off the back right there. Just get them nice and squared up and trimmed. So pork spare ribs, I prefer them over baby backs. Baby backs, they have a smaller bone, but they're curved. I like the straight bones on these, presentation wise. Baby backs can be more meatier, so people like those. I like the meat that's on a spare rib. They're not as fatty, because sometimes other ones can be pretty fatty. I like fat, but pork fat on a rib, not so much. So I'm gonna trim all that off. So we're gonna get the whole process, trim, smoke, and finish. So yeah, let's get to trimming these bad boys. All right, time to prep these. So I usually have two knives. A simple 6-inch fillet knife that's flexible. Flexible allows you to just really work through the meat. And then a chef's knife. This comes in handy in case you have, when you're squaring it up, you have to cut through some of these bones. It will cut right through those. So chef's knife, fillet knife, let's get it done. I mean, you can see these are pretty squared up already, but I want to get some of the stuff trimmed off, which is here. It's not really gonna render off, and pork fat just, for me, when I look for presentation, just looks bad at the end. So I prefer to cut them off. So let's I almost want to cut this last bone off, which I'm gonna do. So when you're making these ribs, you're usually cutting the sides off. These ribs actually look pretty good from the start, but I'm still gonna get rid of this. Let's use the chef's knife. Get rid of this last bone here, like so. There we go. You can put that on as a snack. You don't gotta throw it away. And then I like to, where that meat's just kind of hanging off, I like to just square it up. There. Same here. And you can see, we'll get rid of, see how it cut? It cut right through that, no problem. But when I square up, take the fillet knife here, get some of that fat off, and then I like to cut, this is gonna be a shorter rack because it's already came pretty prepped, but I still want to cut some of this off. So I feel the bone here, it's just a small one. Again, you can use this as a snack. Don't mind the flies. I am surrounded by dairy, so it is what it is. Let's get that off there. Get that over there. But I still, if you see, I still want to square these up some. So let's get that over there. I'm gonna take it off of this end. There we go. Really looking for a uniform when you come to St. Louis ribs. Let's see how we look in there. You can see, still got a little width there, but not bad. Not bad at all. Now we want to get this membrane off. There's different ways of doing it. Everybody has their way. Some people just use their fingers. I prefer a paper towel. Sometimes you get lucky, you'll get it on one pull, but that's not all the time. So see where you start pulling it? Just kind of trying to work it slowly. You can see there's the meat that's exposed. There we go. So that's pretty much one pull there. We got it all off in one pull, which is awesome. Now when we season the backside, the seasoning will get into the meat and not try and work its way through that tough, you can see, can't even get my finger through it, silver skin. And that's pretty much it on the prep. For the most part, we're squared up. They probably could look a little better, but they don't look too bad. Still maybe a little, take a little corner off there. But that's what you're looking for. Uniform, nice squared up ribs. Let's get that last little piece off there. Little things drive me nuts. And now we just got to season it and get it on the Traeger. So that'll be up next. All right, now to season these bad boys. So these are moist on their own. You can use a binder, and people, you know, I every now and then use a binder. It's gonna be hot sauce and mustard. It just allows the rub to stick to the meat a little bit better. So I like to lightly season, not lightly, but I halfway season the bottom side compared to the top side. The top side gets a lot of seasoning. For me, the bottom tends to get really dark if you load it up with seasoning. So I just kind of like pull back a little bit. So here we go. And a lot of people will say, man, especially when we do the top side, that's a lot of seasoning. You got to remember, a lot of the barbecue rubs don't have a ton of sodium, so you can really work the flavor that's in the actual rub that you're using. So we definitely want to load up. This is going to help with the bark, all the flavor, obviously. See, we're going to get a nice coat on the top side. Basically let that sweat out. Sweating out is, these ribs will sit here for about 30 minutes room temperature, and that rub will work its way into the meat and it'll actually look like liquidy when it's all said and done by the time it's done sweating out. So that's what we're looking for. And then they'll go on the Traeger to start off at 225 degrees. So I don't rub it, I just pat it. I don't want to smear the rub in. And then in about 30 minutes, this will just have a nice sheen on it. It'll already have done its job. So I like to get the sides the best I can, and there we go. Okay, we're gonna use my Ironwood 885. We're gonna get this started up. We're gonna go 225. Boom, 225, right there. Start. And there you go. There's that pellet sensor. Got to fill it with pellets, which we'll do. And then we'll go ahead and set that to super smoke. So anything from 165 to 225, you're allowed to use that super smoke. This allows to build a bit more wood-fired flavor. Good option to have. So let's get her warmed up. Okay, ribs are on. I'm gonna go 3 hours, 225 super smoke on my Ironwood 885, and then we'll wrap them from there. So time to close this bad boy. Okay, we're at the hour mark. I'm gonna peek at these. So there's still a little moisture. They'll start drying up here in probably 30 minutes or so, and I'll probably spritz them a couple times, which is a good thing. If you keep them dry the whole time, they could be leathery, chew at the end, so keeping them moist isn't a bad thing. So, but they're looking good. Okay, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. You can see they're really dry, so now I want to spritz them. Basically got some apple juice. It can be water. All we're trying to do is keep some moisture on the top. That's it, that's all. We don't want to wash the rub off. That's it. Come back in about 30 minutes. Double check them. Okay, we're at the 3 hour mark. 225 degrees. These pork ribs, you can see I kept them moist. So about an hour and 15 minutes after they've been on, they start drying out is when I spritz them. So I kept them pretty moist throughout. Got a nice color to them. Now they're ready to wrap. So I'm gonna pull these off individually, and I'll show you how I do my wrapping process. Okay, now it's the wrapping process. So I keep it pretty basic. Brown sugar, I go with the light brown sugar. I got pads of Kerrygold butter, then I got some honey. I've over time, I go less and less brown sugar. You'll see people use a ton of it, especially in competition, because that really brings out the flavor. But to me, it brings out like the holiday flavor as far as like a ham. So you can see I don't really go with much brown sugar. I'd rather leave the holiday flavors to the holiday. So I notice when I cut back on the brown sugar, it's not so bad. So I got 3 pads of butter, and then we're gonna do a little honey. And this is gonna be one side, and then there'll be the whole same process on another side. So let me grab the ribs. Actually, we're gonna dab some of the seasoning that we put on the ribs, which is the Traeger pork and poultry. Let's grab the ribs. All right, so there we go with the ribs. Now we're gonna do it all over again. Some brown sugar on there. Like it says, I don't want a whole lot of brown sugar, but it's up to your flavor profile. I go with 3 pads of butter. You can go with 4 or 5. I mean, it's all on how you want it. And then some more honey. There we go. And then we'll move this to the side. We'll get this wrapped up. Put a little more rub. There we go. And then, so I'm going meat side up. Sometimes I go meat side down. I never really figured out which one works better, but that's all right. So I like to close one end, and then this end I'll leave open like a funnel. And my spritz that I've been spritzing with the whole time, so I don't waste it. Because the idea on wrapping these is to steam them. So you want to get some liquid in there. So 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup, right there. And you want to seal it up, both ends. So this is where I'll go an hour, hour and a half wrap. You can go 2 hours if you want fall off the bone. That's not my thing or my style. So these will go back on at 275 degrees for about, like I said, another hour, hour and a half, and then we'll take them out of the foil and sauce them and go from there. Okay, I went with 270, so we're coming up to temp. I've got all 3 racks wrapped, ready to go. So it'll go 270 for about an hour to hour and a half. I'll decide when it gets closer on how much time I want them wrapped before I pull them out, and then we'll get them sauced and back on. I had to change hats. It's hot as heck out here. So I got the 3 racks ribs on. I have 1 rack that's way thinner than the other 2, so I'm gonna take those off, being in the wrap an hour and 15 minutes. What I like to do is take them out of the wrap because there's all those juices in there. I'll put it back on for about 5 to 10 minutes because I want them to kind of dry out before they hit the sauce. The drier the meat is, the better that sauce will stick. If you just go from straight to wrap to sauce, the sauce cannot really tack up right and might kind of run off and won't be as thick. So I'm gonna do that right now. Let's take this 1 rack out. All right, so here's the thinner rack, which I'm just gonna open up the foil. You gotta have cotton gloves underneath because this is hot. So you're gonna wanna have some heat insulation for sure. Open these up. Ooh. You can see, look at the bone pull. You can see they still got a nice little flex. So they're not over at this point, which is good. Got some awesome bone pull, but see how wet they are? I wanna get them back on the Traeger for about 5 to 10 minutes to get some of that to go away, and then I'll get them sauced. Oh man. Boom. Let's get them in here. Okay, so there's all 3 racks. Pulled them at hour and 15 minutes. Look at the bones popping on those mothers. That's what you want to see. They're not overcooked. You can hold them in the middle. They're not snapping. So now we just got to sauce them. I put them back on for about 5 minutes. You can see they're starting to dry out. Now our sauce is going to stick to the ribs nice. So now to sauce these bad boys. All right, now we're going to sauce. So my preference on saucing them is dunking them. Some of that off. So I just like to get my sauce. It's just a nice even coat. Get it all up in those crevices. And just a nice paint job. Look at that. That's it. Go back on. Goes right there. Get the next one. Okay, all 3 racks are sauced. Now it's your preference. Now it's just tacking the sauce up. See all the bones are popping, you know they're gonna be done. They're gonna be bite through. Very nice looking pork spare ribs. St. Louis ribs right there. So I got about another 20-30 minutes for them to tack up, and I can rest them for a little bit. Got a nice tack up with the sauce. These are about ready. I just let them rest for a few minutes, and then we'll start slicing into them and see the finished product. Okay, there's the finished product. So these were 5-hour ribs. They're off of the 3-2-1. Which is 6 hours, 3 hours smoke, 2 hours wrap, and 1 hour out of the wrap once it's sauced. Or if you don't want to sauce it, I mean, you can go either way. But a 3-2-1 rib is fall off the bone. It's extremely tender, a little too tender for me. These are 5-hour ribs. I still feel like they're in between the way I want them and the 3-2-1 because they're pretty tender. They got really a lot of pullback for the bone. When the bone's exposed, you know they're done. So that's one giveaway as far as when your ribs are finished. So 3 hours at 225, and I did it on my Ironwood 885, so I used the super smoke, incorporated a little bit more flavor. 3 hours, 225 is always a number I stick to. I went in the wrap at 275 degrees wrapped in foil with the apple juice for an hour and 15 minutes. So next time I'd probably adjust that for my personal liking. I'll take 25 degrees off the heat and go 250 an hour and 15 minutes. That way they're a little under what these are now. And then I'll sauce them and go 45 minutes. So 3 hours, hour and 15 minutes, and 45 minutes sauce. So basically that left me a 5-hour pork rib, which I can tell they're gonna be awesome. So I'm just letting these rest for a few minutes and then I'll get into slicing. But when anybody's doing ribs, you just take anybody's recipe, you have your own recipe, make it your own. There's no right or wrong way. Only wrong way is when you hammer something, but when somebody says there's no right or wrong way, it just means everybody's has their own flavor profiles, the way they want to eat their food, like to each their own. So find a recipe, make it your own, and if you already have your own, then boom, you got it. So we're about to slice into these, so I'm getting hungry. Okay, so there's a certain way to cut these, just the way I like to cut them. Because it's hard to see the bone pattern on the top. They get a little wonky, so you flip them upside down. And I tend to use a serrated knife. It's like a bread knife, but there's a serrated slicer. The awesome thing about a serrated slicer is if you do overcook your meat, whether it's a brisket or whatever, the serrated part kind of helps you get through the meat to where it's not shredding. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that. Now you can see where the bones are on this end, and it's a lot easier to cut. So get through there. See that? So let's see what we got. Oh man, look at the gnarly. It's almost an entire smoke ring. And you can see they're not dry, they're juicy. That is insane smoke ring. Now we're gonna give this a taste test. Okay, there we go. Trying to keep it in focus, but we'll get the bite through. You can still see it comes right off the bone. A little further than I want, but for most people, that's a perfect rib. So, smoke, flavor, 5-hour pork, St. Louis ribs, boom. Cheers, everybody.